In 1859, a solar flare hit Earth so hard that telegraph wires sparked on their own. Operators got electric shocks from their equipment, and the night sky lit up with auroras as far south as Cuba and Hawaii. That was with 1800s technology. Today, our entire civilization runs on satellites, power grids, and GPS, all of which are far more vulnerable to a hit like that than a few telegraph wires ever were. So today, we're talking about what solar flares actually are, what they can really do to us, and then we're going to walk through some of the wildest conspiracy theories about the sun and see which ones, if any, hold up to actual scrutiny. The sun isn't a calm, steady ball of fire. It's a churning, magnetically chaotic furnace. Its surface is covered in twisting magnetic field lines, constantly stretching and crossing over each other as plasma churns beneath the surface. Sometimes, those magnetic field lines get so tangled that they snap and reconnect violently, releasing an enormous burst of energy in minutes. That burst is a solar flare, and it can release as much energy as millions of hydrogen bombs detonating at once. This radiation travels at the speed of light, so if a flare is aimed at Earth, the first effects arrive in about 8 minutes, the same time it takes regular sunlight to reach us. Flares are graded by strength, much like earthquakes, using letters A, B, C, M, and X, with X-class flares being the most powerful. Each letter represents roughly 10 times more energy than the one before it, so an X-class flare isn't just a bit stronger than an M-class. It's an entirely different scale of event. Flares often get most of the spotlight, but the part that actually does the real damage to Earth's technology is usually something else entirely. A coronal mass ejection, or CME. A CME is a massive cloud of solar plasma and magnetic field physically launched off the sun's surface into space. Unlike a flare's light-speed radiation, a CME is actual matter, and it travels much slower, taking anywhere from 1 to 3 days to reach Earth if it's aimed our way. When a CME slams into Earth's magnetic field, it can compress and distort it, inducing electrical currents in long conductors here on the ground, power lines, pipelines, transformers. That's exactly what happened in 1859 in an event now called the Carrington Event, named after the astronomer who documented it. It remains the most powerful geomagnetic storm in recorded history. This is the part that should genuinely concern you more than any conspiracy theory, because it's based on real, documented events, not speculation. In 1989, a geomagnetic storm caused by solar activity knocked out the entire power grid of Quebec, Canada, for about 9 hours, affecting millions of people. In 2003, a series of strong flares disrupted satellites, radio communications, and even rerouted some airline flights to avoid radiation exposure at high altitudes. Scientists estimate that if an event on the scale of the 1859 Carrington Event happened today, the damage could run into the trillions of dollars, potentially knocking out power grids and satellite systems for weeks or months in the worst-hit regions, simply because so much more of our infrastructure depends on electronics and orbiting satellites than it did 150 years ago. This is exactly why agencies like NOAA and NASA run dedicated space weather monitoring programs around the clock. Not because of any cover-up, but because this is one of the very few natural disasters we can actually see coming days in advance, if we're watching closely. Alright, now that we know what solar flares actually are and actually do, let's talk about the theories floating around online, because there are a lot of them, and they range from understandable confusion to deeply, deeply unhinged. We'll go through several of the most common ones, what they claim, and what the actual evidence says. This one claims that government agencies already know about an Earth-ending solar flare and are deliberately keeping it secret to avoid panic. Solar activity isn't tracked in secret. NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, and similar agencies in Europe and Japan publish real-time solar data publicly every single day, including flare forecasts and alerts that anyone can check online for free. Amateur astronomers around the world also photograph and monitor the sun independently, so a flare powerful enough to matter couldn't realistically be hidden. There are simply too many independent eyes on the sun, all day, every day, with no single government able to control what everyone else sees. This theory usually points to photos showing the sun looking unusually quiet or blank, claiming it's evidence the sun is shutting down or dying early. What this theory misses is something well understood and well documented. The sun runs on an 11-year solar cycle, swinging between a quiet period called solar minimum and an active period called solar maximum. During solar minimum, the sun can genuinely look mostly blank for stretches of time, with very few visible sunspots. This isn't new, mysterious, or a sign of impending doom. It's a normal, recurring part of the sun's cycle that's been tracked by astronomers since the 1600s, with consistent records showing the same pattern repeating over and over. This one usually gets mixed in with broader claims about weather control or programs like HAARP, suggesting solar activity is being weaponized or manipulated to cause storms, droughts, or extreme weather on command. Solar activity does have a measurable, well-studied influence on Earth's upper atmosphere and space weather, and there's ongoing scientific research into subtle, long-term links between solar cycles and certain climate patterns. But subtle, long-term influence studied by climate scientists is a very different claim from weaponized weather control, and no credible, reproducible evidence has ever connected solar flares to deliberately engineered storms or weather events on Earth. This one tends to resurface around predicted big solar events, claiming a powerful enough flare could physically flip Earth's poles, alter its rotation, or trigger planet-wide catastrophe beyond power outages. A solar flare, or CME, even an extremely powerful one, doesn't have anywhere near the physical force needed to alter Earth's rotation or shift its magnetic poles through that kind of mechanism. Earth's magnetic field does drift and even fully reverse over extremely long geological timescales, tens of thousands to millions of years, but that process is driven by activity deep inside Earth's molten core, completely unrelated to solar flares, and it happens far too slowly to ever feel sudden or catastrophic to anyone alive during it. The real risk from a major solar event isn't planetary destruction. It's a very real, very survivable, very expensive technological disruption to power and communications. Genuinely serious, but not apocalyptic. So here's where things actually land. The sun is genuinely active, genuinely powerful, and genuinely capable of causing real, expensive, disruptive damage to our modern infrastructure. And that's not a conspiracy. It's documented history. But the wilder theories, hidden killer flares, weaponized weather, pole-flipping doomsday events, don't hold up against the actual, publicly available science that's being recorded and shared in real time every single day by thousands of independent scientists around the world. The truth, as usual, turns out to be less dramatic than the conspiracy, but somehow more interesting once you actually understand it. Let me know in the comments which sun conspiracy you'd heard before today, and I'll see you in the next one.